Good morning, everyone. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, I welcome Mr. Vinod Chakravarti, and he will speak on the topic hydroponics for home and commercial farming. I now request the speaker to begin. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Ranjini. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, sir. Please
Okay,
proceed.
good. Yeah, it's nice to be back on another session with agriculture information. I think in September 2005, we did another one on farm automation. And yeah, today we are going to discuss briefly on hydroponics for both home and commercial farming. Just an overview, of course. To uh, to give you a brief why we thought we'll do it as both. Most of the time we get inquiries, saying that, I would like to get into hydroponics. I would like to start in my home first. And if I find it, giving good results, only then I'll get into commercial farming. So this is one set of people who want to start with home farming. Another set of people, of course, would want to grow at home. Uh, I would say growing at home need not always be hydroponics, but growing some edible plants at home is always good because we are getting our children to interact with nature, grow some of their vegetables to the extent possible at home. Obviously, we cannot grow everything. Uh, at the same point of time, the experience always counts. So when I'm saying that, a lot of us, for example, I am living in Bangalore in an apartment, of course, we'll have limited space, right? So in the limited space, to the extent possible, we can utilize maybe a balcony and grow something. Uh, the essence of it is that when we look at home farming, one is connect our children with the food that they eat, right? The idea is, nowadays there's a lot of temptation for children to get attracted by fast food and all that, which is fine. Occasionally eating some junk food is fine. But many of our younger generation, they are not very keen on eating vegetables, right? So sounds boring to eat vegetables, boiled vegetables or raw salads, etc. So the difference that I've also personally experienced from childhood, that we have our child actually sow the seed and watch the uh, plant metamorphosis, if I have to use the word, right. So right from the seed, when it is sprouting, then it becomes a microgreen, then it becomes a sapling, then it grows. So if I have to give the example of a cucumber plant, which has approximately a 90-day cycle. So after a month or 45 days, you start getting the uh, completely grown cucumbers, which the child, uh, he or herself will pluck. So there's a attachment which the child takes towards the uh, produce that they have given. And I've seen a major change in which way the children start consuming the vegetables, which is good for them. And also the ownership that they have when they have grown something on their own. Not to say they become very fussy about the quality, because once you have grown something at home and you have consumed that, you it gets quite addictive in terms of uh, the produce that we would otherwise buy from the market, right? So I'll just touch up on this. So typically, what do people expect when they are looking at growing at home? Obviously, there should be an increase in food safety and health, right? And like I shared, create a sense of belonging. It's definitely a learning opportunity. In fact, in the current NCERT syllabus, I see hydroponics has also been included in class sixth, if I'm not wrong. So one of those classes, it's included. So it's definitely an experiential, study for the children also. Efficient use of space, especially when you are growing leafy greens in a limited space like a balcony, you can go in multi-layer also. Saving water again in hydroponics, because the water is recirculated. Uh, you can definitely save around 70 to 80%. Some people claim 90%, which I think is overboard, but 70 to 80% practically, definitely, we can save compared to the regular farming as such. And obviously, when you're growing at home, it's literally farm to table, so you reduce your carbon footprint, right? So this is basically few slides that we'll be using from our classroom sessions. So typically, what is common to both home farming and commercial farming? Obviously, I would say it's a basic plant science, right? So the way the plants respond to how they are fed and the environment in which they grow, that's not going to change. Plants are plants after all, right? And when we grow at home, obviously, we will not be using the same level of infrastructure that we do in a commercial farm, but we will look at what is practically uh, sufficient to grow at home. So when we grow at home, obviously, we would like to have minimal expenditure on the setups as well as the maintenance. Yeah, uh, one more point that I would like to add is hydroponics also helps working people because some of them say, I'll be constantly traveling 2 to 3 days, then I'm back home only for 3 or 4 days in a week. So in a hydroponics, because you have a set system where there's a reservoir and the water is recirculating, there is no need to water the plant on a daily basis, right? So maybe twice a week or even once a week, depending on the size of your reservoir, that can always be looked at. So the basic plant science, obviously, like I said, doesn't change. And what does hydroponics do? It is only going to change the way your plants are being fed, right? So instead of the plants, eh, going through their roots and uh, absorbing the water and the nutrients which are dissolved in the water in the soil through the roots, in hydroponics, since you're growing the soilless, right? Hydroponics is what? Hydroponas. So basically, Greek words. So you're feeding the plant directly through the water, through water soluble nutrients, right? So the again, the basic plant science remains the same over there, right? And depending on the type of plants that we grow, we would be consuming any of these, right? So, for example, leafy greens are the most uh, popular. Flowers, I would say cauliflower, like tubers. Again, you have your potatoes, fruits, of course. And of course, most of our vegetables are fruits, right? Even our cucumbers, tomatoes, they are all botanically fruits, and so on and so forth, right? So, what we need to address when we are growing plants, again, I say this is common to whether you're growing in a pot in a soil or you're growing in hydroponics. We need to ensure that the plants get all the required nutrients, right? So other than these nutrients, obviously from the air they get oxygen and carbon dioxide, as well as to a certain extent nitrogen also, which is a major portion of the air component, right? Approximately 70%. And uh, water obviously is one of the critical factors. So you just can't ignore water, which is the transmitting media for the plants through a tissue called the xylem. Okay, so what are the roles of the different nutrients that we provide for the plants? So nitrogen is for the chlorophyll, which is critical for photosynthesis, along with phosphorus. Similarly, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, etc. And also you have a whole lot of micronutrients. Like iron is critical for the plants to grow. So all the new leaves in your plants are always highly dependent on iron. And similarly, you have the other components, right? How do you identify deficiencies when you're growing at home? Obviously, you don't have the uh, sensors and the meters like electrical conductivity meters or pH meters, etc. But a look at the plants themselves, the way the leaves are, will be able to show you what deficiencies they have. And when you use the right mix of hydroponic nutrients, obviously this gets addressed, and that makes growing much easier. Right. So chlorosis is basically a deficiency which is reversible because once you put the right nutrients, the plants regain their color, the leaves. And necrosis is where the cells have died. So in necrosis, the process is not reversible. When you address the nutrition for the plants, the fresh leaves will grow properly. But the old leaves, you cannot reverse them. You'll probably have to just cut them off. Right. I can always share the deficiency chart. It's available on Google also. And what's the difference between doing hobby hydroponics, which is home farming, and the professional or the commercial one? Obviously, you don't have time to get into the integrities of that. So we provide with the pre-mixed nutrients. So it's a plug and play kind of a thing. You just look at the predefined measures, mix it, and add it with the plants. I mean, through the water when you're watering to the plants. Right. And similarly, whether we are growing at home or outside, you're bound to have pests which are coming to the plants, because finally the plants that we eat, the pests would also like to eat. Right. A slightly ugly picture, but this is something that you will come across when you're growing plants at home in any manner, again, not just hydroponics. And these can be addressed basically with a whole lot of organic pesticides also. So typically when someone says pesticides, people say, no, I do not want to use pesticide. But then even your neem oil is a pesticide, right? So you have a whole lot of organic options also, which are pesticides. Another way of preventing pests is by using sticky traps, yellow or blue color traps with that will have a gum on top. So the pests, when they come, they get attracted by the color and they go stick to the traps. That will reduce the number of pest attacks to the plants. Right. So how do you manage at home? These are simple ones. Like I find one, caterpillar on the plant, one or two. When I'm growing at home, I may not find much. So just manually remove them instead of using pesticides. That is one. If you're having too much of flying insects, then obviously a regular spray of neem oil, etc., will be useful. Sticky traps, like I said. Pheromone traps may not be required at home again, but then that's also a preventive way where the traps contain the hormones which make the pests get attracted. So they get into that bottle and they get into the liquid and die. Chemical-free pesticides, obviously, neem oil is one. There is one called Bavaria bassinia and Bacillus thuringiensis, a whole lot of others. According to the requirement, we always recommend. Right. And when we are also looking at hydroponics, I would say similar to someone who's growing the saplings from the seeds, one can as well grow microgreens also, which is basically a stage once the seed has sprouted and before it has become a sapling. They are definitely a nutrition powerhouse, extremely good for kids. And a whole lot of edible seeds that we have in our kitchen themselves can be used to grow microgreens, like your mustard, jeera, sauf, uh, the pea shoots, sunflower shoots, etc. Right. So we have already covered in terms of why hydroponics is useful at home, like I had shared orally earlier. Right. And these are some of the types of hydroponic cultures that you can do at home, which is deep water culture, nutrient film technique, which is nutrient film technique is quite popular or well known with people, where you are growing in the channels. Deep water culture is where you're growing in a raft like the one shown on top. And then media culture is, for example, if I'm growing a cucumber plant or a zucchini, etc., Obviously, the plants themselves are larger size, as well as the roots required for the plants to stabilize will be more. So they are usually grown in what we call Dutch buckets, or even you can grow in grow bags with any media. So media culture, like coco peat is popular neutral media as such. Similarly, you have other options. Right? So while we have a time constraint to take everything in detail, and that's not the objective of today's session also, it's to give an overview. At the end of the session, I'll be happy to take your questions on this. Right, Ms. Ranjini? So I think I'm on time in terms of having finished the first half of the session. Okay, so I'm just stopping this sharing to get into the next session.
Yes, sir. You can share the screen again.
Right. So I'll just open that and share again. Okay, Ms. Rajni, you can tell me if this is fine.
Yes,
Is the
please
screen
proceed.
audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, is the screen visible?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it's visible. You can proceed.
Okay, got it. So again, so commercial farming, what is the objectives that we have, right? What are the goals of commercial farming, right? Obviously, you can look at the setup also. It'll be much different in a commercial farm. This is for a farm which grows leafy greens only in a system called a fan and pad cooling system on the greenhouse aspect. So what are the goals of commercial farming? So here I'll be very clear. Not all crops are commercially viable in all the locations. So we need to uh, make a study. For example, we get a lot of customers who say, no, I'd like to grow XYZ, other things, depending on the location. So we have to go backwards. We need to look at the location where the customers have their farm, and whether the crops that they're growing there is commercially viable to grow and sell. Because finally here, the objective is to make profits and earn revenue. All right. So we look at uh, various goals in that. Obviously, the revenue would be the first aspect, the revenue generation, and also whether it is viable to uh, invest in certain infrastructure. For example, technology will give you X number of options, N number of options. But investing in so much of money, whether it is going to be financially and commercially viable for that particular farm. So we need to put a balancing factor. So whatever we would have given, for example, as a commercial farm setup for some of our projects in Maldives or Malaysia, etc., it may not be commercially viable in India because of the simple fact that the pricing in which we sell the produce, right? As well as the cost of labor, all other factors we consider when we suggest what is to be invested, what is going to be an overkill and a waste of money, if I have to put it as far as commercial farming is concerned, right? So before someone gets into uh, commercial farming and hydroponics, just like in any other business, right? We need to do a little bit of market research, weather conditions, the pricing in which we are able to sell, which is the consumer buying power, basically, right? And the trends. Trends in the sense, so how will I put it? 20 years back, I don't think even the uh, cosmopolitan cities in India were consuming as much of lettuce and other exotic greens as they are consuming today, right? So we also need to have a little bit of idea of what can be the trends in the coming years and plan accordingly. On a broader aspect, you can always plan that, okay, I have one set of a commercial farm to grow leafy greens, one for the fruiting crops. And within that set, our farm should be flexible enough to keep changing the varieties as and when the market demands change. That is most important, right? So some examples of the leafy crops and some examples of the fruiting crops. Like I said, all the vegetables, most of the vegetables that we consume are botanically fruiting crops themselves, right? And if someone is at the stage where they are looking at selecting the land either for buying or for lease, then again, these are some of the parameters that we'll be looking at: approachability of the land, water availability, power availability, weather conditions, skilled labor, and the transportation cost depends on the distance of the farm from the nearest selling point also. Another point I have not included here is the availability of subsidies. That again is based on the type of infrastructure that we choose, as well as the size of the farm and the location of the farm. So, but again, that also will be considered at the point of planning the commercial farm as such. Okay, water quality obviously has to be tested. The soil quality, if you're growing only in hydroponics, then soil quality will be tested only in terms of the structural requirement. But most of the times, like I said, since not all crops will be suitable hydroponically, most of our customers, they will grow whatever is viable, they'll grow in hydroponics, and other crops will be grown on soil also. So we typically do a testing of both. And the greenhouse design will, to a large extent, depend on the yearly weather profile for obvious reasons, right? So, what are the kind of systems that one can look at, which is commercially viable in hydroponics? So, one is hydroculture. In hydroculture, you have only the water. There is no media to support the roots. So, uh, two uh, two uh, two types of hydroculture systems which are commercially viable in India would be the nutrient film technique, which is growing in the channels, and the deep water culture. Deep water culture is where you have an artificial pond kind of a thing. So your reservoir itself is your growing system. That is called a deep water culture. In the substrate systems, typically you have the grow bag systems where you fill the grow bags with coco peat with the drip irrigation system, but the coco peat itself does not have any nutrition to give to the plants. It's only for the support. So you are still feeding the same hydroponic nutrients through the water. You have two options here. One is you water it sufficiently with around 10% of drainage to happen. And another system is where you recirculate again, in which case, instead of grow bags, you use what you call Beto buckets or Dutch buckets, but you recollect the water, which passes through another disinfection system, and then the water gets recirculated. Similarly, trough system is coco peat based for leafy greens. I'll show you some images of both. Right, so NFT system is the nutrient film technique. Many of us would have seen in a lot of videos because hydroponics typically has become popular with this kind of a system. Uh, the second one is the second one is the trough system where you can see the leafy greens are growing in coco peat. Right. The third one is substrate bag. So grow bags for the larger plants like your cucumber, cherry tomato, zucchini, etc. So they are growing in the grow bags, and you can find the plant support systems which are tied to them. Deep water culture, like I shared, you can make it out. They are you can see the water contained in those structures are more because they themselves are your reservoir. In a nutrient film technique, there are pipe systems where the reservoir is kept elsewhere and the water gets recirculated from there. In a deep water culture, your growing system itself is the reservoir. You can still have a recirculating system for the sake of aeration, but your water is typically stored where your plants are growing. That's a major difference. All right. So again, whether you're growing in soil or you're growing in hydroponics, hydroponics is what? It's only going to change the way you're feeding your plants with the nutrients, right? The rest of the factors like the environment, uh, pest management, etc., that have to be tackled irrespective of how you grow. So the greenhouse selection again will depend on the type of crops you are growing and the type of weather that you have at that location. So some of the examples, fan and pad structures and naturally ventilated polyhouse are very popular. Naturally ventilated polyhouse is economically viable, which costs, let us say, around approximately 800 rupees per square meter. Uh, that will have an insect-proof net all around, and on top you have the vents uh, through which you get natural ventilation inside the greenhouse. Obviously, there will be some cooling systems to maintain, like the fogger systems will be part of it inside the naturally ventilated polyhouse also. In fan and pad system, which may cost you anything like around maybe around 1200, 1400 rupees per square meter. Here, you have something called an evaporative cooling. So imagine that you have an air cooler that you're using at home, not an air conditioner, an air cooler. Now imagine this is a gigantic air cooler where the greenhouse, the plants, and you are inside the air cooler and not outside, right? So one side you have the pads, the cooling pads, which will be watered, and the other side it gets blown away, right? So the water droplets they get uh, they travel across the fan and pad greenhouse and they come outside. So for this kind of structure to work, it is important that your humidity, the weather humidity outside the greenhouse should be lesser than the humidity inside the greenhouse. If you're doing this kind of a structure in a extremely humid area like a coastal area or an island, etc., it may be difficult to much more challenging because if the humidity is more outside, how is the humidity going to be sucked from inside the greenhouse to outside? Simple as that, right? So the purpose of sharing that example is not all structures are suitable for all the locations. The low cost greenhouse can be like a shade net house where you'll still have water trickling during the monsoons from top, uh, but it'll have a 50% covering and it'll also block the light to the extent of 50%. You would have typically seen these kind of shade net houses in the nurseries. Retractable is you're making a mix of open farming and greenhouse farming. So when the weather is good, you can open up the roof from top, and when it is required, the roofs can be closed. Like you have those convertible automobiles, right? So yeah, so basically, to sum up in another 2 minutes, the when we look at commercial farm, we clearly before starting also we need to map the demand to production of crops, which is part of market research. Look at what can be grown year round. Try and figure out the demand for off-season uh, produces so that you are actually growing something which is uh, not available all the times, which means you can actually sell it at a premium, etc. Right? And what are the kind of customers available for you when you are looking at commercial farms? You have online aggregators, high-end supermarkets, high-end restaurants, hospitality industry, processing industry, and of course, export markets. Export markets, you need to have a fairly large farm, ideally maybe around 5 acres or so, because size matters when you're looking at exports. A smaller farm, we would always suggest start with the domestic markets and maybe you can build on and grow your commercial farm. All right. So I'll do one thing while the uh, presentation ends here, and I think I've taken a couple of minutes more. I'll quickly share one YouTube video which will give you an idea of the kind of commercial farms that are available and some of the farms basically that we have built from Hyperfarms, that is our company.
Okay, sir, you can share it.
Right? Okay. All right. It's a 5 minute video.
So as the video is playing, you can just explain it, sir,
And
because
yeah, so these are solar panels. This is from I'll just reduce the volume of it. These are solar panels, and this is the when the greenhouse structure was being done by our team. So this is at a location in Maldives, which is an island. uh, I mean, a cluster of islands, right? So this is one of the smaller islands, or an islet, I must say. The entire islet was converted into a farm. Again, like I said, it is a mix of hydroponic and commercial farms. This is where the seedling nursery is, and these are the NFT system, the nutrient film technique system. Okay, so in Maldives, you have a space constraint, right? Because they are all smaller ones. So here, what we have done is, along with the regular channel tables, and these are the fruiting crops. For example, for chilies, melons, etc. And you can see the Dutch buckets being used. We have placed some grow bags inside the Dutch buckets also, just to make it easier to maintain. And these are cherry tomatoes growing over there. You can see the fogger systems on top. Again, like I said, Maldives being a islet and not a and highly humid place. So we have used naturally ventilated polyhouse only, and not the fan and pad cooling system. This is at a different location. So here you do see the pads and fan and pad cooling system. This is at a different location. These are bell peppers growing in hydroponics again. You can see the drip irrigation system which is put, and there's nothing but cocoa peat inside for the plant support, along with the trellis or the hooks with which the plants are supported. Some of the cherry tomatoes. Typically, the tomatoes or the melons, which you see here, we allow the fruits to ripen in the plant and then we harvest. That is when you get the real flavor of the plants. This is an example of indoor farm. We had done this setup for a couple of high-end five-star hotels. This particular setup was done for Leela Palace in Hyderabad. Again, when you do at a commercial scale, obviously you look at automation. So the entire system was automated. You can have a look now at our at the end. This is our automation equipment for the fertigation. So basically, you'll have part A and part B of the hydroponic nutrients, and one part for balancing the acidity levels or the pH balance. These kind of systems are typically used only to grow leafy greens, not for the larger crops. But in the restaurant, they were using it mostly for the salad crops. This is an example of vertical farming, right? So these are A-frames grown in a nursery, kind of a shade net kind of a place. And again, automation is not just for hydroponics. Today, because of the kind of labor issues you have and other issues, so we provide automation for regular open farms, soil farms, greenhouse climate control. We also provide the automation for poultry farms, golf courses, landscape requirements, etc. So our fertigation machines are designed separately for hydroponics and for the regular soil farming, since the requirements are different. This was for a French company called BioGrow, who are using our fertigation machines. And this one is for a company called Fragaria, which is one of the companies where investing has been done by investors like Nikhil Kamath, etc. Right. So I think this gives you a fair idea. So I think we can jump into the question and answer session. Shall I
Okay.
stop it, Ms. Rajni?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, sir. You can stop sharing the screen. I'll move on to the questions, sir, so that we can see your full video.
Okay, so should I finish it then? No? Hardly 1 minute remaining.
Another 1 minute, sir. Okay, no
Yeah,
problem. We'll
done.
proceed. Sir, can you just explain because
Yeah, so again, the inner portion I had explained. Here, this is a naturally ventilated polyhouse where because of, like we had done this in a location like Maldives, we put an additional sheet of shade net on top, illuminates what we call, which is reflective shade nets, and that could be retracted as and when required. This is more from, the video was actually done for our promotional events in stalls, etc. So here, uh, it's a video where we are actually engaging with our customers, some of our classroom sessions, etc. I think that should be good enough. Later on, we just have our uh, team photograph, etc. Fine. I think we can start with our Q&A, Ms. Rajni.
okay, sir. I'll move on to the questions now. The first question is
1 second.
yeah.
I'll just yeah, sorry. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. I'll take up the questions now. The first question is what
Hmm.
is the minimum investment required to set up a hydroponic system at home?
At home,
Yeah.
I would say, how much does it require to buy a grow bag? One grow bag on our website costs 30 rupees. Okay. And one cocoa peat bag, 25 kg bag, I think costs around 200 rupees, 250 rupees, 300 rupees, depending on the quality. So one bag of cocoa peat is sufficient for 3 bags of grow bags. So if you want to start with a minimum investment, since your question was that, so 3 bags, 90 rupees, one bag of cocoa peat, 300 rupees. So take it as 400 rupees. One set of plant nutrients you can get for 150 rupees for 100 liters also. So uh, seeds, another 50 rupees. So I think in 600 rupees, you can easily start growing three plants in 3 grow bags at home. That would be your minimum investment.
Okay. Which
So
vegetable?
the purpose of sharing that is a lot of people think that no hydroponics is expensive. I mean, whatever be your bare minimum investment, you can always start with.
Okay. Which vegetables, herbs, or fruits are easiest for beginners to grow hydroponically?
Okay, so I'll answer that in 2 ways. Though I myself started with cucumber, I would always encourage anyone to start with leafy greens for the simple reason that they are the quickest to grow to harvest stage, right? So what happens is it is easier, not only easier, it is more motivating for beginners because you're getting the yield faster. Like, around 15 days from seed to sapling, sapling to harvest 30 days. So in 45 days, your first cycle is done. Uh, uh, it is also easier because leafy greens, since you are going to harvest them quickly, the time that they remain on your growing system, whether it is your nutrient film technique or your grow bags, etc., the time is less. That means your chances of having to tackle with pests and diseases is also less because you are going to harvest it quickly. So easiest would be the leafy greens. Among the fruiting crops, I would say cucumber would be the easiest because not only they germinate faster, they grow faster, they die faster also. But yeah, you can say in a span of around 3 months, you can easily get around 4 kgs of cucumber.
Oh,
Tomatoes have a life cycle of 9 months. Again, you will get approximately similar yield, but a longer tenure. So it will take a good 3 months before you start actually getting the harvest. And the type of training that you need to give to the plants and maintenance, pruning, etc., because of the longevity of the plant would be slightly higher compared to the cucumber, etc.
Okay. How much space is required for a productive home hydroponic garden, sir?
Again, it's a subjective question because when I say productive, it is my expectation of how much I want to grow, right? So I'll put a number into it. For example, if you have a 3.5 feet by 3.5 feet, so that is around what? 12 square feet. 12 square feet, you can get monthly yield of 30 leafy greens very comfortably,
Okay.
right? And similarly, if I have to give the cucumber plant, so one plant will take a space of around 1 square foot on the floor, right? But when it goes on top vertically, obviously it's a climber, it grows on top. So let us assume with the spacing you give around 4 square feet also, you are getting a yield of 4 kgs in 3 months.
Okay. Um, how much time does a homeowner need to spend each day maintaining the system?
The faster you learn, the lesser time you spend. Initially, obviously, you will spend more time because, for example, it's not just the watering. Watering can be done automated also or through the recirculating system. But as a homeowner, on a daily basis, if you can spend 5 to 10 minutes just to inspect the plants for any pests and diseases, that is the most important and critical portion because the earlier you identify that, earlier you can control it, right? Without using too much of pesticides or other requirements. And yeah, but other than that, I think over a period of time, when it comes to home farming, if I have a, let us say a 10 square feet, let me take around 50 square feet balcony also. In a longer run, once I'm used to it, I don't think I need to spend more than 10 to 15 minutes every day.
Okay. What it's related to commercial hydroponics, sir. What factors should an entrepreneur consider before investing in commercial hydroponic farming?
Okay, so I think I covered that in our presentation. So first thing you need to look at is your location, the type of soil and water quality you have that. How far is it from your nearest selling point, and uh, the weather profile of that particular location, availability of labor, etc. And what are the crops that will be commercially viable over there? Obviously, once we have a idea of the location, etc., we will also we have the data. We will be able to guide in terms of what are the crops which are commercially viable. So, like I said, what is commercially viable in a place like a hill station like Ooty may not be commercially viable in a place like in Karnataka. If I have to take like Bidar, Gulbarga, etc., which is extremely hot, or in a place like Rajasthan where it is extremely cold in the night and extremely hot in the day, like during the summer, winter, all extremity of weathers. So all these factors have to be considered, which needs a thorough professional guidance, and then we can help you take a decision in terms of what is commercially viable. In fact, 8 out of 10 people who ask us, I would like to do a hydroponic commercial farm here. We have done the study. We have told them, please don't do it. It is not viable for you. And then we've gone ahead and supported them with the regular farming with our automation. So it is critical because it is not necessary that what is commercially viable in location A will be viable in location B.
Okay. What is the approximate investment required for setting up an 1 acre commercial hydroponic farm?
All right. So 1 acre commercial farm, if you look at, if you go for the basic designs, right? So let me take uh, uh, like with the naturally ventilated poly house and with the trough system or the grow bag system, etc. Then you can expect it to be done in anything between like around 75 lakhs, 80 lakhs, etc. The more you invest into technology, like in the nutrient film technique, fan and pad cooling system, etc., the cost can go twice of that also. So typically, again, these are decisions to be taken based on the weather profile, based on the market prices that you will be getting at your location. and I mean the logistics and all other aspects. Not to mention, when someone qualifies for the subsidy, especially on the polyhouse, those costs will reduce from the capital expenditure that we have an eyeballed number that we discussed on. But yeah, leaving aside the subsidy, this would be the cost that one would have to look at.
Okay. What are the major operational challenges faced by commercial hydroponic farmers?
Okay, so uh, main first thing, I think you will agree, the operational challenge will be labor. Like you employ typically 1 acre farm, let us say, will require up to 4 laborers, right? So there is a learning curve. They would learn, let us say, across the next 3 months, 6 months in your farm. And again, this is not just for hydroponic farm, in any business. Once they have learned, they may move out. They may go to some other place. They leave working here. So you have to train another set of people. So I always make it a point from our company. We always make it a point to say that the farm owner should be thoroughly trained first, so that while your laborers may keep changing, you are the permanent person for the farm, and you should be thoroughly trained. Uh, Other challenges that come are the weather vagaries. Sometimes the forecasted weather and the reality in what happens in the weather are not met. So that can be addressed through the climate controlled automation as well as climate controlled greenhouses. And the price fluctuation. We must understand that agriculture is more volatile than the stock market also, if I have to lightly put it. So your expectation of pricing when you grow something and the reality of the price that you get when you sell something, there is bound to be a difference. But over a period of time, how our customers have been able to address and stabilize that is, of course, the first 1 year, 2 years will be a pain point. But since the farm delivers consistency in quality and quantity, so a lot of the customers become the regular customers, and they eventually get into contract farming agreements. So we have a couple of our customers who are running farms which are 100% into contract farming. Now, obviously, that sounds very good to be true, but we must understand that during their first year and second year of operations, they have been patient enough to go through all these pain points, and then once the regular set of customers, the confidence levels have been built from both the sides, then the business becomes consistent. So yeah, so initial teething issues in labor with the type of crops to be grown, customer identification, as well as pest and disease management. Because any new location, it'll take some time for us in reality to understand what are the regular kinds of pests and diseases which come there. Of course, we'll have data and we can plan on that. But yeah, those are challenges that we can foresee and address also.
Okay. Uh, I'll go to the next question.
Right.
Sir, what are the biggest mistakes first-time commercial hydroponic entrepreneurs make?
Keeping extremely high expectations. Some of the customers have made the mistake of investing in extremely high technology without doing a proper market research. So we always recommend our customers that we first do, you can engage with us also, but first do the market research, look at what is viable, what is not. What happens is some of the customers, they get carried away with the glamorous videos that we see on YouTube. Oh, this is doing wonderfully, I'll also do well. Doesn't work that way. So most of the time, again, I would say not just hydroponics, any business that we get into, if we do it with a lot of enthusiasm and we jump into the business without doing the proper homework before starting the business, that is the biggest mistake. Same holds good for this business also.
Okay. What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who wanted to build a successful business in hydroponic farming?
Okay, so I would say if you're planning to build a successful commercial farm as a business, one is look at hydroponics as one of your tools for your commercial farm. Don't be attached to the technology of hydroponics. Because, like I said, not all crops are going to be commercially viable in hydroponics. Yes, certain crops in certain locations will do wonderfully well. They will definitely give you much more better yields and returns compared to regular farming. Go ahead, go ahead, do it because finally it is commercially viable. But the same set of customers, I'll give you an example. If someone wants, let us say, certain varieties of lettuce, bok choy, kale, as well as cherry tomatoes, muskmelons also, zucchini, just to give an example, these are a set of crops that a customer wants, and they'll do wonderfully well in your commercial hydroponic greenhouse. So same person, along with that, if he says, I want baby corn, I want carrots, I want onions, I want potatoes, why why leave that customer for his other requirements just because they are not commercially viable in hydroponics? Along with your greenhouse, you grow it in soil. You, along with your hydroponic system, grow it in soil, either in another greenhouse or you grow it in open farm. But make your farm business commercially viable. Don't just stick to one type of growing system. You have a larger vision of your commercial farm and then look at the business holistically. I think that is more important.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We have now completed the round of questions. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we would like to thank Mr. Vinod Chakravarti for the talk and for answering the questions. This meeting will now be closed.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.